a cult of passionate teachers who prided themselves on raising their children to be warriors of the good grammar movement. That's right, in my household, ending a sentence with a preposition was bound to bring on the apocalypse. There was never any room for asking my mum, "Hey mum, where's the apocalypse at?" Double negatives were frowned upon. I couldn't not tell you that. And while splitting infinitives, that was punishable by having no tiny teddies to trade at morning tea. I'm still a stickler for good grammar at heart, and I enforce it with my students. But I always thought, there's got to be more to language and interaction than what my mum used to say was perfect grammar. There had to be more to avoiding awkward social situations and making friends that wasn't linked to my ability to identify relative clauses. I wanted to know more about language and how we use it and why we use it in social interactions. My father always used to say to me, "Roz, in order to really connect with someone, you need to get on their level. You need to speak their language." This sparked my ongoing curiosity and research into Aussie English and its relevance in speech communities, and how it might be able to help us make more meaningful and inclusive relationships. So let's start with what we know about Aussie English. Research shows that Australian English rose from contact with British English settlers, Indigenous and other migrant languages, which gives us some really key and unique features of Australian English, some of which I'm going to share with you. We often see unnecessary and excessive swearing. "Oh, Dave, you bloody idiot." There's even the cringeworthy multiple negation. "Oh, Mum." "Yeah, nah." "What do you mean? What do you mean?" "I done nothing wrong." We even have some really unique social and cultural practices that we see in our Aussie English that are even unusual to other speakers of English varieties. The fact that it's okay to give someone a nickname we don't know or that is of somewhat higher authority or status, like our politicians, the elf, Gilesy, Tone. And this one, well, this one's for the ladies whose partners seem to love their car or their boat just a little bit more than they love them. So much so that they use the personal pronoun she to make reference to it. "Mick, is that your new Mazda BT50 outside?" "Sure is. She's a real beaut." We even use her to solve social situations. "Oh, I'm really fussed, I don't know what I'm going to do." "Stop. She'll be right." And this one, my absolute favourite, the use of unique cultural labels to ascribe identity to people that are influenced by our cultural values and practices, behaviours, and our unique Australian landscape. Behold the bogan, the larrikin, the wanker, ocker, legend, mate. So what do we get when we combine what we know about Australian English with social interaction? Are we breaking any rules? We can't understand each other? Well, we're probably breaking those rules my mother told me not to. But in fact, we're following a whole new set of rules. The rules of conversation, whereby we're following a structured system of talk. People in that interaction take turns. When they're selected by another speaker to take turns, or at a relevant point called a transition relevance place in that interaction. The use of Aussie slang or just Aussie English in that interaction can in fact make that meaning clearer in the interaction and make it more relatable to participants. We can even create social solidarity and build better rapport just by using something so simple. We all change the way we speak to suit our needs, whether we're at work and going into an important business meeting, or at a barbecue with our mates, or we're talking to our kids in the classroom. Wouldn't it be great if we could combine what we know about Australian English with the principles of social interaction to create the optimal inclusive environment? In the many interactions that I've researched, I realised, in fact, a lot of us are already doing it. But wouldn't it be great if we could do it a bit more? Wouldn't it be great if we could talk to our neighbour, or the lady across the street, Well, that little kid in our class who we're constantly nagging about getting his verb tenses right, wouldn't it be great if we could talk to him in a way that was engaging and would make him more willing to learn? And it all revolved around the power of Aussie English? Well, it is great. It could be great. And what would be even greater if we could all consider how we could use it a little bit more in our everyday social interactions. So before any teachers in the room do want to throw that grammar textbook at me, yes, it definitely has its time and place. But I believe that engaging and including people is just that little bit more important. So next time you see the refugee across the street and wondering, well, why aren't they talking to me? Maybe they don't know how to start interacting and fitting in. So perhaps learning some social gestures and greetings from their culture and combining it with our great Australian English might just be a starting point for you to start interacting. Perhaps you might even create a new multicultural hybrid slang that will catch on, or at the very least, you can talk to each other using. So to give you an example of how this idea of Aussie English in social interaction can be a positive and inclusive relationship building experience, let me tell you how I first made friends in the Territory. Although it may seem unlikely, I have a deep-seated fear for talking to people and meeting them. Because, I'll tell you why. In my mind, small talk, when you first meet someone, is made up of awkward conversations and people making a judgment of you based on no empirical evidence. And to add to that, my nerdy understanding of the science of interaction meant that at that point in time, I'd be expected to take a turn in that conversation when someone asked me a question to select me as the speaker, or if there was a relevant transition relevance place in that conversation. This was just getting all too complicated. I didn't want to do this. So when my partner told me that we were going to meet these people for the first time, I was not excited by such an offer. But to my surprise, my night went a little bit differently in the Territory. What I thought would be a 5-minute I'm out of here conversation turned into an ongoing friendship, all because the people I met somehow were embracing the power of Aussie English in social interaction. So I'm going to give you an excerpt of what went on in that night in the Territory. This is what was said to me. "G'day, mate. You must be Roz. Get in, get around us. Welcome to our house. It is great to meet some fresh new Territory blood. This is the misso, call her Nancy, or Nance Pence. She will love that." Now, Tom, we weren't sure if you had a chance to experience much of the Territory tonight, so tonight we're bringing the Territory to you. Serving up on the meat burner, that's the barbecue, you'll catch on, we're serving up crock, barra and buff, or buffalo. Wow, that went a little differently. So what made that interaction meaningful to me and included me? Well, it followed a structured system of talk. There was people following the rules of conversation. But it was the use of the slang, the colloquialisms, the nicknames for the people that I was expected to use for the first time I've ever met them, that built a sense of rapport, that group solidarity with them, that meant I was made to feel welcome in a community I'd only just arrived in. So if there's so much power to be had by using slang in our communities, why aren't we all on this bandwagon? I can tell you why. Why aren't we all on this bandwagon? I've already talked about how Australian English arose from contact with many other languages. So I'm sorry, but the secret's out. Australia never has been monoculturally influenced. So before you go and not talk to someone because they don't speak your language, maybe think again. For example, the Territory, it's an incredibly diverse place. The unit complex that I live in has 7 nationalities alone. Do we all get along? Yeah, because what I realised is we've embraced this idea of Aussie English in interaction. So when I come home from my touch football matches covered in bruises, and the lady who lives downstairs says to me, "Oh gee, Roz, you're in the walls again," I don't correct her. I know that's not the right expression, but it always gets us talking. And then when my other neighbour, who's much older, she keeps to herself, but she hustles and bustles around our communal pool complex always flustered, declaring, "Oh, I've got a bee in my bottom." We don't call the ambulance. We laugh, and it always gets us talking. In fact, I kind of like these new expressions a bit better than the originals. So what does a community that's powered by this Aussie slanguage look like? Well, it's interactive and it's engaging. It gives everyone an opportunity to communicate on some level with each other. It's dynamic, it's ever evolving. We're developing a language or hybrids of this language. It gives people a sense of belonging, a sense of feeling like they can be cohesive in their community. It might even make that person feel a little safer in their community. Language is an amazingly powerful tool. It's a resource that every single one of us uses daily. So why not use it to make our words speak louder than our actions? Because I'm not Gemini. Get around me in this idea, you mob, because we really could make some more inclusive communities. So next time you go to ignore your neighbour or the refugees across the street, you do that awkward smile and wave, "I'm in a hurry, got to get to work." Stop. Get on their level. Speak their language. Introduce them to some great Aussie slang and let them do the same to you about their culture. I'll even let you use double negatives. To nod would just be un-Australian, mate.